You sign to help someone, a child buying their first car, a friend needing an apartment, a family member starting to build credit. The paperwork felt routine at the time, just a signature, just a formality to get them approved. Then the payment stopped, and the calls started coming to you. Co-signing puts a signature on legal obligation, not just a gesture of support, and when the primary borrower stops paying, the consequences land on the co-signer with full force, often catching people completely unprepared for what that actually means. Tonight, exactly what happens when this occurs, and the real options available once it does. Before addressing what to do, it's worth being clear about what was actually agreed to, because the reality of co-signing surprises a lot of people who genuinely thought of it as a lesser commitment than it is. A co-signer is not a reference. A co-signer is not vouching for someone's character. A co-signer is equally and fully legally responsible for the entire debt, from the very first missed payment, with the same obligation as if the debt were entirely their own. Lenders don't pursue co-signers as a last resort. After exhausting every option with the primary borrower, they can, and often do, pursue whichever party is easier to collect from immediately. This also means the debt appears on the co-signer's credit report, not just the primary borrower's. Every missed payment reports to both people. A co-signer's credit can be damaged by payments they never even knew were missed, if there's no active monitoring happening on their end. Discovery often happens one of two ways. Either a collection call comes directly to the co-signer, or a routine credit check reveals late payments already reported, sometimes weeks after they started. The first move is verification, not panic. Confirm exactly what's happened, how many payments have been missed, what the current balance and status actually is, whether the account is still with the original lender or has already moved to collections. This information changes what options are realistically available, so it needs to be gathered accurately before any decision gets made. Contact the lender directly, not just the primary borrower. As a co-signer, there's typically a right to obtain account information directly from the lender, without needing to go through the primary borrower first. This matters because relying solely on second-hand information from someone who's already missed payments and may be avoiding the situation is not a reliable source of accurate current information. Once the actual situation is understood, several paths exist, and the right one depends heavily on the relationship, the amount involved, and how many payments have already been missed. Bringing the account current directly is often the fastest way to stop ongoing damage. If financially possible, paying the missed amount, even temporarily, prevents further missed payments from continuing to report and prevents the account from progressing toward default or charge-off status, which causes significantly more damage than a payment or two being late. This doesn't resolve the underlying problem of the primary borrower not paying, but it does stop the bleeding on the credit report while a longer-term solution gets worked out. Contact the lender about restructuring options. Some lenders offer modified payment plans, temporary hardship arrangements, or, in certain cases, the ability to formally remove one party from the obligation through a process sometimes called a co-signer release, if the primary borrower's credit and income now qualify independently. This isn't available on every account type, but it's worth asking about directly, rather than assuming it doesn't exist. Have a direct, documented conversation with the primary borrower. This is uncomfortable, but necessary. Understand why payments stopped, genuine hardship, mismanagement, or something else, because that context affects what kind of resolution is realistic. Get any agreement about repayment or next steps in writing, even informally through text or email, so there's a record of what was discussed and agreed to. Sometimes direct communication and cooperation aren't realistic, whether due to the nature of the relationship, the primary borrower's unwillingness to engage, or a situation that's already progressed too far for informal resolution. If the debt has already gone to collections, the co-signer has the same rights as any other consumer facing collections: the right to request debt validation, to dispute inaccurate information, and to negotiate directly, independent of what the primary borrower does or doesn't do. A co-signer isn't required to wait for the primary borrower to act. Direct action can be taken to protect the co-signer's own credit and financial position. If ongoing legal action becomes a real possibility, a lawsuit for the remaining balance, this is the point where consulting with an attorney becomes genuinely worthwhile, since the specific laws and options vary by state and by the type of debt involved, and the amounts at stake in these situations often justify professional guidance rather than navigating it alone. Refinancing or paying off the debt entirely, if financially feasible, sometimes becomes the cleanest path when the relationship or the primary borrower's situation makes ongoing shared responsibility untenable. This isn't always realistic, but when it is, it removes the co-signer from ongoing risk entirely, rather than managing the relationship indefinitely. Once the immediate situation is stabilized, whatever the resolution ends up being, credit repair for the co-signer follows much the same process as any other credit damage. Pull the credit report and confirm exactly what's showing: how many late payments, current status, whether the account is still open or closed, and on which bureaus. Dispute anything inaccurate, particularly if payments were caught up and the report still shows an outdated negative status. If the account was brought current, some lenders will consider a goodwill adjustment for the missed payments, particularly if this was a genuinely isolated incident on an otherwise clean payment history. It's worth requesting, even though it's not guaranteed. Going forward, if remaining as a co-signer on any account, set up independent monitoring rather than relying on the primary borrower to communicate payment issues. Many banks and credit monitoring services allow alerts for any account tied to your credit file, which means missed payments get caught within days rather than discovered weeks later through a damaged credit report or an unexpected collections call. Co-signing is a real legal and financial commitment, not a formality, and when payments stop, the consequences land fully on the co-signer, with the same force as if the debt were entirely their own. Verify the actual situation first, directly with the lender. Bring the account current if possible to stop ongoing damage. Explore restructuring or release options with the lender. Have the honest, documented conversation with the primary borrower. And if the relationship can't resolve it, know that independent action, disputes, negotiation, in serious cases, legal counsel, is available regardless of what the other party does. This is Credit Clarity. We'll see you in the next one.